Jesus.
All right, what do we got? We got a Black Raven ritual. To me, content heavy. Ooh, that's good. Episode Sonk. Episode 5.
Sorry, you're never gonna make French a thing.
I'm never gonna make.
Not even
French is no. It's just
not even in
I'm
France.
trying to push French. I'm trying to make France a
No,
thing.
it's never gonna be a thing. I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. No one is going to like France as a place.
I didn't say that.
Am I trying to make France happen?
Cancelled by our French fans. We're never gonna speak French. They're always gonna come after you and say, "Please don't do that."
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, even if I grew up in France and spoke fluent French, someone would say, "Please stop speaking French."
Well, I would.
We've read the book.
Mm.
This is the book. The Day of the Jackal.
We watched the movie.
We did. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Read the book.
The
watched
movie. We watched the book. We watched the book. We read the book. We enjoyed the book. We didn't even talk about that.
We did.
No, we didn't. Did you like the book?
Did you check in on us last week? We did talk. I did like the book. It was
Hashtag right up your alley.
It was an airport read. It was an airport read. It was a very nicely done airport read.
Interesting.
It was propulsive.
Do you
it was
feel like
interesting,
that's
it was
a
easy
dig
reading.
on it to
A
call it an
dig?
airport read?
Well, we're not talking about Billy Shakespeare over here. It's a I that's what he was going for. He's the John Grisham of his time.
Sure. Okay. I'll give that to you.
Yeah, it's Tom Clancy adjacent.
Tom Clancy. It is. But
And that's not a dig. That's
I know.
that's,
I just feel like that's in some way it just seems cheap because I don't.
You knew the book you were picking out. It wasn't
Yeah.
a Nobel Prize winning novel.
New York Times best-selling.
It didn't have themes. It didn't have motifs.
All right.
But did I enjoy it? Yes, I was entertained by it. I enjoyed it. It was entertaining. That's a book you could knock out on a Seattle Go Hawks to New York City flight
You could. I agree.
and have a nice time.
And have a wonderful, nice time. Okay, so we watched the movie film.
Sure.
It's 2 hours and 39 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
It's 141 minutes.
Which one's bigger?
What I said first. It's 2 hours and 21 minutes long, according to Roger Ebert's 1973 July review of the film, which, by the way, 4 out of 4 stars.
What did Big Ebe say? Was he for it?
He's very for it. He calls it one hell of an exciting movie. He says it unfolds in almost documentary starkness.
Hey, that's what we said about the book. Did he read the book? Does it say if he read the book?
It doesn't.
Can you get
It
him on
says
the phone?
it says he's working from. No one can get him on the phone anymore unless you got the old phone to the old skies.
I thought it was Siskel that died.
Nope. Ebert definitely did. Ebert died in 2013.
Well, that makes sense because the book very much, the movie very much paralleled the book.
It did.
It was pretty a pretty straightforward adaptation.
Frederick Forsyth was one of the 2 writers of the screenplay. So he was not just involved in a producer
you
aspect.
can feel that they lifted entire scenes and.
Some other comments that Roger Ebert talked about is that they definitely filmed all across the world. So all the filming took place where it would. So it's not your typical New York and Toronto.
Yeah, I wish they made a better use of some of the locations. You could see that in like the Ark. But that's one of my hopes for the television shows is that I hope they do a little bit more with the scenery. You could tell that they were on location, but I'm not sure they did a ton with that location.
I think I would agree, but I would also say I don't think it has the same, because it was done in the 70s. I don't think the locations had the same
right. It's gonna hit different. They don't have the dramatic drone shots around the Eiffel Tower or whatever the fuck.
They're like, they can only have a camera on the street, and so they're gonna have the buildings of a place. His final sentence, Roger Ebert's, was, "I can truthfully say that the movie is spellbinding," which he says is a word he doesn't like to use, as it feels very advertising copy, to speak his words. He says it's 2.5 hours long, but seems to be over in 15 minutes, which I somewhat agree, somewhat disagree. I agree in that it felt very well. It's weird. Yeah. This is a tough one for me to talk about because we were so tired. We started the movie film at 11 p.m., which meant we ended at 1 a.m.
Well, no, that would be 2 hours. So it was 1:21.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going by the book, it did seem like the first, say, 100 pages were done in like the first 15 minutes.
It did feel like it was snap, snap, snap.
It was incredibly quick until it was not. And of course, that's how the film is going to go. We talked about this at the time. There was a couple of things that I sort of wish they had sped through, like the Jackal is working the sights on the sniper, and we don't need that. We already know he's good at his job, and he's going to adjust his gun to make guns shoot good and accurately. And maybe they could have done a little bit more of the intrigue on the front end, and not so much on. But I think this was a complaint of mine of the book, is that he's going to shoot the melon, and he's going to walk over to it, and then he's going to walk back, and he's going to do some screws, and he's going to walk over to the melon again, and on and on and on.
I feel like all of that was done to show you what they don't show later, which is they don't spend a lot of time in the last scene of him putting the gun together and showing how, like, that, because that piece of the book was a huge component where they were like, it was the twist, if you will, of the book, which is like how he hid the gun and how he had come up with this design and how this guy executed it in dadcore fashion and made this amazing thing because he's the best person to do this thing. And he does it for the passion, he could have chosen a life in manufacturing, but instead he decided to become a top secret gunsmith.
Sure.
What I thought, yes, anyway, sorry, I'll finish this thought before I get another one. And so I think when they did that with the melon and that scene in the movie, it was done to show you at the end, because they definitely shortened that scene where he puts the gun together in the apartment to shoot. I think it was interesting how I think it was very smart of them to skip the entire scene where he hides in Paris by dressing up like a woman or like a effeminate man. Because I don't think it actually, seeing it in the film, it wouldn't have added a lot to it. Like, I felt like that seemed like the extra episode of a TV show where they're trying to do something comedic.
Yeah.
And it doesn't play as very good comedy. Back to the point of the gunsmith. The funniest thing I found about the gunsmith in the film versus the book is the book, he was very wink, wink, nudge, nudge in the way that two professionals doing the same thing would do, where they say, I don't actually want to know the details of what you're doing. He's like, I want to know how far away your target is, how big your target
Will the
is.
target be moving?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Does
then
the target have normal size head?
yeah, but he doesn't even say head. He's just like, is the target, he very much tries to make it vague, like he's hunting game. Like how big is the giraffe's head that you're hunting in a way? And in the movie, he's very much just like, I assume this man that you are going to shoot with this gun and explode his head and kill him will be about this far away. And it definitely made it seem the opposite of what I liked about the book was that they differentiated the gunsmith and his professionalism from the person who does the fake documents for him, which is good at his job, but the fast and loose criminal, if you will. And that's the non-dad core version of the criminal, and that's why he gets stuffed in a suitcase.
They did that in the movie just by giving him different facial expressions.
Yeah. Yep. No, I totally agree with that. I didn't know that. You're not wrong. He was the clown, right? He was like, ooh, yeah. He definitely had the like, I'm a goofball about this thing, like, where they just made the other guy have a German accent, and that's how you knew he was serious and good at his job.
Apparently, that gun actually worked in the movie, which I don't know what the point of that would be.
No, I don't.
But
it's just a fun fact.
That's kind of fun.
It is fun. So does that mean that whole melon scene, it was probably shot just so he could play with this fun new toy that they built?
I assume they used a different gun. I don't know.
Why wouldn't they use it if it works?
Well, I'll tell you another fun fact. They purposefully cast the actor of the Jackal as a nobody, as somebody who had not acted before, keeping with the idea of the Jackal in the book, as somebody we don't know, which was kind of fun. So I'm sure for a 70s audience,
it was fun to see this person that you'd never seen before.
That played well. You see that in movies now. It does have an effect. He's not dragging in a whole bunch of baggage about his other parts and roles. Just an anonymous guy, and I thought he did a fine job.
And I think we'll find later when we watch The Jackal that is not the case, as they brought in a character actor who some of us know, Bruce Willis, who may have some other roles before that film.
I think we went through them
one by one.
Last up, we talked about your favorite Bruce Willis
joint
films. I want to get into this a little bit more after we see the movie, but apparently that movie was so different from the book.
They had to distance themselves.
The author purposefully made them change the title of it.
They did. And yes, we will discuss that when we get to that, which will be the piece de resistance.
Now, what those differences are, I do not know. So far, I know that one is a movie and another is a film.
Yes.
That's all I know. This
one we watched, what I would call a movie film. The other one, which yeah. Well, you got to put both.
Okay.
It's great that you bring up Edward Fox, who played the Jackal, because this line that Roger, Mr. Ebert, resonated the most with me, which is, the movie doesn't provide much chance for a deep characterization, which I think plays absolutely true. They did not give us, but I would say the book also didn't give us a lot of chance to be like, develop the character of the Jackal, other than he good at job.
We talked about in the book. He's not a fully fleshed out character on purpose by design. Yes.
Yeah. And then he says, however, he projects a most convincing persona. He's boyishly charming, impeccably groomed, possessed of an easy laugh and casual ruthlessness. He will kill if there's a slight need to. Fox's performance is crucial to the film, of course, and the way he carries it off is impressive. Which especially for 1973, I totally agree. I think the actor did a fantastic job of portraying him, but I don't think he was written as a person. He's just guy.
And I think I liked movie. I liked book.
I like movie.
I also have the same, not necessarily complaints, but the same issues that I had with book I had with movie, because movie is following book so very faithfully.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I ask you, what would you like to see differently, if anything, in TV show? Take your time.
I would like more time showing. I'm trying to like shorten the words now. All of a sudden, I'm like, because we've seen what book, what TV, what movie, and now I just want to go see more gun.
That's fine. You can talk.
No,
you can use your natural language. It's fine.
I would
It's no
like
problem.
I would like to see in the TV show them show how he is better at his job from a previous resume purpose that they don't show in the book.
So, okay. Let me double click on that. You want to see some flashbacks? You want to see back to Egypt when he kills the guy or whatever?
I would
You
like
wanna
to
get
see
him
the
back
first.
to here,
I
to
would like
there,
to see the first 3 eps of the TV show just cover that, not flashback. I mean, maybe if you want to say the first 20 minutes of the TV show is the current time, and then we spend a significant time in the past, I would like to see that. Or in the way that all TV shows work, I want to say now, they do the like. We spend the first 10 minutes of every episode in the present, and then 20 minutes in the past, and then the last 10 minutes in the present.
While we're swimming in these waters, is it weird that they would give us the story about him going to Egypt and knocking off those 2 scientists or whatever?
Yeah.
But then also, concurrently within the book, create this mystique about this guy who we don't know who
Anything
he
about.
is, and the end of the book is he wasn't who we thought he was in the first place.
But they don't. But the Egypt part is still him.
Isn't it strange that you would have this true story, but the rest of his backstory is fake, and the whole point of the epilogue, to your point, is we don't know who he is.
Which
or
part
what
of
he
his
is doing.
backstory was fake, though? The part that we missed.
His entire trip down to the Caribbean.
The
zip-zapping around.
Caribbean part was fake. But we don't even know that. All we know is that a guy, Calthrop, Jack.
What? Charles
Calthrop, thank you. Charles Calthrop. We know he was down there selling arms, as very wonderful people do.
He was a real guy, and he had
was a
nothing
real
to
guy.
do with the entirety of the story. The background we know about the Jackal is he went to Egypt and he killed a couple of guys.
Yes, but that part we know that actually, that's on his hashtag resume.
Is it odd to include this true story into the book and the film when kind of the point of it is to make him anonymous?
I don't think it's odd.
I find myself bumping on that in retrospect.
I think I bump on... I don't know if I bump on any of that. I don't know if it like all the reality of it comes down to is that all the intel is very hearsay, and all the information that all of those organizations, both the OAS side and the government side, are working off of bad intel or rumors. It's all rumors.
Okay. So a bunch of ambiguity. He said, she said, we don't know this, that, but you would like some fleshed out backstory of absolute truths, some real legitimate backstory for our Jackal.
I would like to see more of it. It doesn't mean that we need to, that other people need to witness it. Us as the omnipresent viewer.
That does seem antithetical to what you were talking about.
No, I don't. Him, like them throwing the end where he's like not this character that you got convinced that he was, is different from a perspective of I would like to see not us as an audience, but us witnessing them go down the road of what they've investigated and what they find. Like nothing in the book when they mention Charles Calthrop and they go through all the investigation of who this person is, none of that information is concrete, but we find it to be concrete and we think it's concrete as the viewer, right? But we're just following along with the quote unquote good guys, and so we're like, yeah, they figured it out. That's him. We got him. Like, and then the like twist at the end, if you will, that he's not this guy and that he's still, we don't actually know who he is, and he could be anybody. is it's not like antithetical to what they're trying to say with that, or against the idea that I'd like to see his resume more. I'd like to see his resume, but I'd also like them to mislead us in other ways. But I don't think they want us to. I don't want to be misled by what a lot of movies and TV shows do, where they show you something and then they show it to you again differently. And they're like, "Oh, that's." Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, "Oh, that's not actually what happened. Here's what happened." Sometimes that works, but a lot of times I think that's overdone in a sense that, like, "Oh, see, we tricked you. Like, that's not actually what happened." Where it should be like, "This is obviously what someone's." It happens a lot in crime shows where they're telling you the crime scene and then you watch it, and in some ways that tricks you as a viewer because you watched it, you witnessed it, but that's not actually what happens. And they go back and do it again, and I think that's okay when that's the principle of the show. Like, they do that in Knives Out, and that's okay because they're doing that because they're working with the idea. And I think that would be okay as long as you're showing it as the detectives are trying to work an idea out. Vibe. Yeah, but that's the Calthrop scene where they're working it out. The problem is it's the first time we see it, and so we believe what they've worked out to be true. We believe the evidence, but I don't think that's ruins it for us as a omnipresent viewer or a witnessing viewer, because they also come to the conclusion later that they were wrong. Like, the evidence is very good that it's Charles Calthrop, but then they get more evidence and they find out that it's not, and it adds to the mythos of the character of the Jackal. But I don't think it ruins the idea of, like, maybe we see him in Egypt doing all the cool things he did in Egypt.
The more backstory that we get is going to eliminate that mythos.
At some point, yes.
Because we are going to see exactly what he does. I would love to see more of the backstory because, I mean, candidly, we spent 2 hours and 20 minutes in the movie. That was not enough time for me. I thought it was paced too fast.
It was super fast.
I thought it was a little bit too fast. But if we're looking at, is it 10 eps an hour each? Something like that?
That sounds about right.
Let's say it's 8 hours, just as a conservative estimate. That does seem like...
No, that's a lot for the book. If you were just covering the book, that's a lot.
That seems like a fuck ton.
Like, back to the movie, because I want to talk about the movie. The first scene where they do the assassination attempt, I felt the similar excitement I felt when we were watching Ben-Hur, and just that, like, we're watching something old and they're shooting something very cool that's action-y. And I get obsessed with how they actually do it, because there's no, like, and then we make car explode. Like, they just have to roll a car, or they have to
a chariot.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean in the sense of, like,
guy to car guy. It was a chariot.
Yes, it was a Renault, Citroen actually. But it also felt like when you watch video a little too fast. Do you know what I mean? Like, especially because they just shoot this scene. They don't really explain anything like they did in the book. Like, that first section we read about the assassination attempt, it might be 15% of the book. And he goes into extreme depth about each character and their choices that they made that to lead them there, and the mistakes they made that didn't happen. And the movie, it's 10 minutes, maybe 5, and then voiceover that's saying there were this many shots and they almost hit the president, and it, like, you know, it was almost a good attempt, but they didn't explain that he had missed it, or that he read the Farmer's Almanac wrong, which I think is the part of the movie that misses with me, or somewhat missed, that the book hit, is that the book dug into the dad core, which was like, here's what's so crazy about this event, versus the movie, which was just like event.
Well, and also the way the movie is paced is different from the way that I think most people read books, which is to say that you pick up a book, in the first 50 pages you take the longest to read, because you're getting acquainted with the characters, you're getting acquainted with the writing style of the author. You've got to go a little bit slower to get your feet set.
And the last 50 pages of the book were like...
And the last 50 pages are always going to be the fastest. You want to finish the book. You want to see what happened. And that's the opposite of what happens in the movie, where in the movie, the first 50 pages, just in movie time, is like 5-10 minutes or something like that. And the last 50 pages in movie time is like an hour.
Yeah.
So it's a complete inverse of how you are consuming the content.
As the last bit, because I really don't want to extend this too long, because I could talk to you about it forever, especially now as we talk about it more. Do you feel like you could have enjoyed the movie if you hadn't read the book? Like, do you think you enjoyed the movie more because you read the book? Because I did enjoy the movie a lot. There's a little negative tint in my head because I really wanted the end to end, because it felt a little bit long, because I was just like, A, very tired, but B, just kind of like the end of the book is exciting, but it's not, because it's the details. The book at the end, you're like flipping to see what happens, and we know what happens, and since the movie was so close to the book, there was no like twist on that. But I do feel like there's a lot in that movie I don't know if I even would have caught if I hadn't read the book.
Absolutely. You're missing a ton if you haven't read the book. And that's the same for movie adaptations across space and
always.
time. There's something different about adaptations from like the 70s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s that I wonder if this is true. I would love to do more preparation on this.
I'm definitely going to ask my dad if he's seen it.
I wonder if there was more of an expectation back in the 70s that you would have read the book.
Right.
And that would have mattered. Like, we are making this movie for readers of that book rather than, certainly now, the movie is for anybody. We got a book. We got a piece of intellectual property. Thank you for writing this. We don't have to do that. All we have to do is make movie from book.
Now, again, the book was published in 1971. The movie came out in 1973. And the book was, by all intents and purposes, a success. So it wasn't like this, like people knew about the book. Mm-hmm. The other thing about that's interesting that I think we slightly miss, probably, is that what happens in this movie took place in 1963, and so the movie's out less than a decade later, and the book's out less than a decade. The movie's exactly a decade later, and the book's less than a decade later. And so a lot of what we got from the book, most people probably being of the time, like we're current with it. It would be like writing a book about, or it'd be like making a movie about the Trump's first presidency and like skipping some of the details, where most of us like knew those details from the get-go.
Yeah, I talked about this when we picked book up from the jump. This is from very immediate history that everybody would have been. They're alluding to events that their audience at the time would have had shorthand for, that you and I do not. However, we do now because
we read book.
We did the research.
We did our research.
We hashtag did our own research.
Hashtag. I guess what I'm saying is A, read the book.
B,
watch the movie film.
C,
watch the TV show with us.
D,
then we're all going to sit down and watch The Jackal.
E,
continue to listen to our podcast about other things not related to The Jackal.
F,
get back with our podcast when season 2 of The Jackal comes out, and we're going through that.
In sign language?
No, I don't know sign language. Almost any of it.
G. Do a G because I know H.
Oh, I need to get to H.
Let's skip G. Fuck G.
No. G's actually
no.
G's
no.
G's the most important.
H.
No, G is the most important.
H.
G is the most important. G for gaming. We will definitely do some episodes where you and I both play through a video game together and discuss the narrative themes of it.
I.
No, we got to H now.
I skipped you.
Oh shit. I think it's important that we end this episode and start watching the TV show.
J.
Just for laughs, we should definitely end the episode and get into it.
K.
Kill it.